Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast. Parker hosting edition, I guess. Just gonna try this out and see how it goes and see how we like it. It's preseason. We can try a little different, and I don't know. We'll figure it out along the way. Got a full house though. Got Andy and Matt here in the podcasting seat today, so get into it. But Andy, how you doing, man?
Oh man, I am beat. I feel like I'm gonna pull the map this season and just keep giving you updates on how I'm improving my house. Um, yeah, Matt came over today, helped me rip out a light fixture. Um, but other than that, it's been packing. I don't remember if I said this last week, but we're moving in about 3 weeks. So um, it's been a hectic day. We got pictures tomorrow. Listing goes up next week to sell this house. So hey, if you're in the Milwaukee area, you're looking for a house, DM us at Flag Down Pod. Uh, no, it's dude, I'm beat, but I'm ready to talk Chelsea. Matt, how you doing?
I'm also tired. Um, my wife was working third shift this weekend, so just kind of hanging out with the little guy all weekend. So it was good kind of bro time. I will tell you one funny story. So they have a park right by my house, and they have a jungle gym and whatever. So they have a bridge, and it just kind of slopes down, and it's a little unsteady. But they have safety rails along the side. The problem is the safety rails are like really high. So whenever my son goes on the bridge, I usually go with him. Well, he decided he was going to run across this bridge, and keep in mind, he does not have the surest of footing yet. So in my own reaction, I decided to step on said bridge, and I basically sent my kid into oblivion. So he was full terrible 80s action movie of the guy diving out of the house or the building that's going to explode, just full send. Um yeah, so that whole parenting thing, think I'm nailing it. Um but no, it was good just to hang out with him. And then, as Colin said, went over, helped him with a couple things today, and then went to the Wisconsin State Fair. So we met up with some friends of ours. We got to meet their new daughter. So it was good to see them and hang out with them. And yeah, so and got here and got home and just hopped right on. So yeah, just kind of a whirlwind, but all good over here. Parks, everything's with you, man.
It's been good. Life's been good. Been bacheloring it up last week. My wife went back home, went to a work function, and then home for a few days to see her parents, and one last time before baby comes. It was just me and the dogs for most of the week, and then two of my cousins came into town. We had this day kind of circled on the calendar for a while, where one sees friends every year out in Denver, and then we worked it out where the other one could fly in and just do a weekend here at my house. So it was great, man. I get along with my cousins real well, and it was fun to just have a couple of beers. We went to Flight Club and threw some darts, which was fun, and went hiking on Saturday morning. So a little active, little play. Got to watch the Joe Rogan special. So it's just been fun, just doing guy shit, drinking beers, ordering pizza, hanging out, having fun. So it was a great weekend. Not as tired as you guys. I didn't work as hard as you guys, so I'm not going to complain. Got a lot of energy, and I've got a lot of beer to drink, so good. I also have a bachelor party I need to like up my alcohol stamina for in a couple of weeks. So little bro's getting married, so going down to Madison or not Madison, Wisconsin Dells for a Wolfen drinking excursion weekend. So do need to up my numbers. They're rookie numbers, I gotta pump those up 3-4 times a day.
Like stays down preseason.
This Chelsea team has kind of made me want to drink more in general, just watching our performances. But we'll get into it. We got a couple of topics to talk about. want to talk a little bit about formations. Yeah, I was talking to Collins a little bit before the pod started. I don't really know the big difference between Maresca ball and what Poch was doing with our guys, but I want to focus on the midfield. What do you guys think they are? What our ideal midfield lineup is? I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to gauge and see with players out. We saw Enzo and Caicedo's first performance. They've been a little rusty coming back into it. Avi has done some things to change a lot of people's minds. So what do you guys think? Like, how do we line up, and what do you think that ideal midfield looks like for us?
Well, let me break some news here that might affect some of our choices. Fabrizio, 20 minutes ago, keep in mind we're recording Sunday night, confirms Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid, 40 million euros, agreed to a 5-year contract. Now he's just got to take his medical, and then he's off to Madrid. So, so I know you guys are big Conor fans. So but we'll let you guys start. How does that affect your ideal midfield?
I feel like I might go off on a tangent with this. But so here's, ever since I saw the news that we had at least accepted the offer, the first thing that came to my mind was that at least he's going to a team that fits his style of play. And by style of play, I mean Atletico, very smash mouth, very up in your face, very pressing, very physical. I think it's a perfect fit for him. So by that, I'm happy that he is going to go somewhere that fits his style of play, and that I think he's going to do very well in just kind of the things that I've seen that he's contributed to the Chelsea team. 40 mil, I'm okay with that. With the new crop that we have coming in, and stuff like that. The downside, I would say, and that this is kind of the homer in me of, kind of seeing some of the academy guys. We've talked about some of them that have stayed a long time and, have made names for themselves. It kind of sucks to see him go. And I think just kind of the way that it did, and whatever reports you want to read, I still think it's kind of off-putting, the way that kind of a lot of things shake down. But unfortunately, it was just at a point where it didn't make sense, based on where the new manager was going, based on the contract negotiations and things like that. I get it, right? End of the day, it's a business. To me, I think that both parties probably got what they wanted. As far as Conor going to Atletico, again, a very good team, right? And we all know what Atletico can do and what they're capable of. We know what Simeone can do, as a manager. So he's going to a great manager, an established manager. And I think it's a win-win for both parties. We get this new crop of midfield in, we start to get them kind of acclimated to the new system. I think it ends up benefiting both in the long run.
I'm saving my Gallagher comments for my Gallagher topic. It didn't impact my ideal mid because I didn't have him in my ideal mid only because I figured he was going. I didn't contemplate him in this lineup just because all the rumors and reports were saying he was gone. So it didn't seem like he was playing for us this season anyway.
Yeah, and I will say, and I think there's a lot of recency bias here with Cobham graduates. You got to remember, everybody pining for Roman to come back as the owner. We would have 1 or 2 Cobham graduates in any given squad at that point. We have 11 in this squad right now. It's not like we're selling off every single graduate of Cobham. Conor didn't want to sign a contract, and another one was recently offered 150,000 is per week is what the rumor is on a 2+1 deal. And he didn't want to sign it, so it is what it is. It honestly, it reminds me of Mason Mount, but I don't see Conor as much of a snake. Now, in terms of ideal midfield, I think we saw it against Manchester City. It's going to be Caicedo, Enzo, Lavia.
I haven't watched any of preseason. So I'll preface with that. I just have not had a chance to watch any of it. So all mine is just kind of speculation at this point. I think Enzo and Caicedo, we know that they're going to be there. I don't think that's a question. That's kind of the biggest given. To me, it's the ultimate question with Lavia. Is he going to be healthy? Parker, can you confirm that Lavia is an actual player?
I've seen him multiple times now. It's
Okay.
crazy.
I just want to make sure. I mean, yeah, we all know like why we got him. We just haven't been able to see it. I'm hoping that that if it is Lavia, it's a partnership that can develop quickly. It's not a partnership that I want to spend an entire year trying to build. I think if it works right away, then keep at it. But the thing is, I think we have other combinations that could work. And Parker, that probably goes into your question about the formation is, what can work, what is possible with this team. You've got a lot of guys who can kind of play different positions, not so much in the back, because I think we're pretty solidified at the back now as far as who's where and whatnot. The midfield I think is open for a lot of options depending on how we want to set up. If we want to set up, having left and right mids, like actual left and right mids, then you put Cole out there on the left or something like that, or on the right. It just depends on how we set it up. But I think Caicedo, Enzo, those are definitely the two mainstays. And to me, I think it depends on the lineup and who we're going against, that we could definitely tinker with that on any given week.
My gut tells me that those three, Collins, Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo, don't play together. I think Lavia takes Enzo's spot if he comes into the lineup. I think he's either going to beat Enzo out for it or he's going to sub behind Enzo. That's where I kind of see him playing, because I don't think he's going to I don't think he's going to take Caicedo out. And I think there's too much overlap between those three players. It's three people for two positions, and I don't think all three play together. We've seen a little bit of Enzo going forward. I would say minimal success, and I don't think that his strength lies in that going forward, more of an 8 role or pseudo 10 role. He was almost a false 9. You asked that question in the group chat, house. Is Enzo playing a false 9? And the way that Nkunku played almost made it feel like he was. Strength definitely isn't as a false 9. So I think those are three guys going for 2 spots. I think Nkunku completes the triad. So he's a midfielder, but he plays as the 10. He'll come back into possession to help build it up and then work through the channels that way. And so that's how I see it. When I designed my ideal 11 today, I don't really know. I think Nkunku can play out on the left, but then who occupies that space? I don't think it's Enzo. I don't think it's Shrewsbury Hall. So I don't think it's Carney. Could be maybe Carney, but I don't think he's ready for that, the big stage today yet. So Cole's got his spot down. Reece James has his spot down. Caicedo probably has his spot down. And Nkunku's got a spot. We don't know exactly where it's going to be. Everything else is kind of up in the air. Mudryk and Sterling are fighting. Tosin and Badiashile are fighting. Disasi's still fighting in that triad with Colwell. And so our center backs are still fighting for spots. I don't know if anyone's truly cemented spots except for the ones I mentioned first. So that's where I think it's pretty interesting right now, where we can line up a couple different ways. To your point, Matt, we have a few looks, we have a few options. Interesting to see how our lineup differs from City on Saturday versus City in 2 weeks.
Well, let me flip that on you, Parker. What is your lineup against City in 2 weeks? Because I think a lot of it is going to come back to who is coming back from break, who's finally joining up with the team, and then what formation they're going to play. So who do you have out there for the opener?
I've got Bobby Sanchez in goal. I've got Cucurella on the left. I've got Tosin and Disasi if he's healthy. Otherwise, I've got Probably Colwell. My center back pairing, Tosin and Colwell. I've got Reece James on the right. I have
Reece is suspended.
Sorry, not Reece. I'm sorry, Gusto. Gusto, excuse me, on the right. Then I've got Enzo, Caicedo, Sterling, Cole Palmer, Nico Jackson. That's how I line it up. That's my best 11 today, as I've seen it play out.
Matt, how about you?
Is Fofana back?
Yeah.
I think you run Fofana and Colwell. I think you need, if Disasi can't go, I think you need Levi and Fofana in there. You need the athleticism to compete against what City can bring. I haven't seen Tosin play. I'm not sure what his strengths are, but I like the two more athletic and agile center backs. Cucurella on the left, Gusto right, Enzo Caicedo. To me, I want to see Mudryk on that left wing. Odds are it's going to be Sterling, but I want Mudryk out there. And then obviously Palmer, and Kunku, and then Nico Jackson. Argument could be made for Mark Guiu.
Yeah, I think Lavia and Caicedo and Enzo can play together, and so I agree with you guys primarily on the back four. Bobby Sanchez in goal, obviously. Gusto and Cucurella as your wing backs. Disasi, and I honestly don't give a shit who the other one is. They're all at about the same level right now. Badiashile, Fofana, Colwell, Tosin, whoever. But then, right in front of them, I think you have Lavia and Caicedo. Lavia's big, physical, but also has speed. He's kind of your Rodri. You have Caicedo, who's your N'Golo Kante. In front of them, you have Enzo distributing. And then you've got Palmer and Nkunku and Jackson up top. And that's your 11. But it's nice. I will say Lavia's distribution so far, in addition to his physicality, his distribution so far this preseason has been a joy to watch. I've been so impressed with the way he can pick out a pass, especially with a runner. Was that Noni who he set up on the goal? That was one hell of a pass. That was Enzo-esque. Big fan.
It's almost like if Poch had Lavia and Nkunku last year, things may have been slightly different for him. Weird.
There's a reason Poch doesn't have a job.
I'll throw one other thing out there. It's preseason. We had a lot of stock after a good preseason last year, and all that went to shit real quick. So I'm not overly hyped about preseason in general, whether it was good or bad. I don't really care, because we saw Ian Maatsen actually had a pretty good preseason from what I recall. I think Collins, your boys Andre Santos and Angelo, they had good preseasons as well, and they were sent on loan. So I'm just saying, in general, I don't take a lot of stock in preseason. So good or bad, yes, you might see glimpses that are good, but that doesn't always translate into the real thing. So I'm not putting a lot into that.
But think of the things you just said. Ian Maatsen had a good preseason. He went on to be the starting left back for the Champions League runner-up. He had a good season. Andre Santos and Angelo had good preseasons. They were both young players of the month multiple times in Liga 1. They had good seasons. Nico Jackson had a great preseason. He almost scored 20 goals. There are things you can take from preseason.
Yes, there are. I'm saying preseason as a collective. So they did really good in preseason. That doesn't always translate. That's all I'm saying. Like, there are some cases, like you just pointed out, yes, but they helped other teams and not our team. That's the big thing, right? They had good preseasons for us, and then they left. So to me, I just don't put much into preseason in general.
Preseason for me is a good chance to see how far people have come and what the gelling is looking like and what our weaknesses are. I think it is relatively indicative of how things can go. Not 100% because you're not playing against full strength opponents. You're not playing against Premier League level opponents. But I would much rather win every preseason game than lose every preseason game, all else equal. I'd rather look great and lose than win and look like shit. I put stock into it, not a ton. And unless you're like the Detroit Lions from like 4 years ago who won every preseason game and then sucked ass all year, like unless you're that, I think there is a lot of story to be told with preseasons translating into solid foundations of team.
If there's one thing I've taken away from this preseason is that Chelsea should just join Liga MX. It's the only league we can beat somebody from.
And still be mid.
El Chelsea.
We didn't really talk about it last week, Collins, but the draw against Wrexham is a bad look. It's not a good look.
It's not, but I will say the same thing I've said about most of these preseason games. We came into that with just a few weeks under a new manager, several players coming in and out of the squad due to international breaks. Whereas Wrexham, that team has been together for, that core has been together now for multiple years. Phil Parkinson has been there for multiple years. Their season ended later than ours did. Their season is starting before ours does. And you can say the same with Celtic. Celtic's been under the barrage for several years now. They've had the same core for several years, and their season starts in a week. Man City, their season starts next week. Ours starts in 2 weeks. Now we're not at the same level as City, but these other ones I think are just further along in their development and in their preseason than we are. And you can say as much as you want about changing managers and all that. That's probably part of it. But I think you can write it off as the team is still learning what's expected of them. We saw Dewsbury Hall fill in and look like the best player on the pitch because he knew what he was doing. Now everybody else is starting to get to his level a little bit in terms of technical knowledge. So he's kind of fallen back into the pack a little bit, but a lot of it comes down to how much are these guys learning what the system is.
Yeah, I just get upset because I don't think that a manager change was necessary. So I don't think you have to be in this situation. So chose to be in this situation with a new manager. They didn't have to be there. They could have continued the success that we had, riding a 6-game win streak down in season. They chose to be here. They chose to sack a manager. They chose to get rid of him. They chose to hire someone new. That's our own doing. It's not an accident.
And to be fair, we had a better preseason with, as you said, Collins, a manager change, trying to implement different systems, and with a bunch of new players. And we had a better preseason last year.
So here's what I'm getting out of preseason. I'll amend my statement. I'm taking Matt's role in that I will explain to you how I'm improving my house every week. Parker's taking my role of manager out, and Matt, you are the instigator as always. So
I'm living. I'm just kind of lurking in the background, just poking and prodding. Yeah, box of frogs.
It's not wrong. I just think these are self-inflicted wounds. Like, we decided to get off track. We decided to change cars. Have to.
But if you've been driving the car for a year and you realize, oh shit, this is not the car for me. This does not fit my lifestyle. Then you have the money to change.
Took a team from 12th to 6th and a drastic second half improvement over the first half. I think everything was trending in the right direction. I still feel it. I still believe that. You guys got this with me when we sacked Tuchel, and for a good 6 months afterwards, you got to hear me talk about how I miss Tuchel. You're gonna hear the same shit about Pochettino. Like, I agreed with what he was doing.
I'll give you the Tuchel thing because he immediately had another top level job coaching Bayern. Now, granted, they did not get a trophy for the first time in X amount of years, But Poch was in a similar situation, and he is not employed.
Yeah, people didn't get a job instantly. He got sacked mid-season.
Right, but there hasn't even been rumblings about people interested in Poch other than U.S. men's national team.
Fair. Different topic for a different day. Speaking of shitty topics to talk about, our team has had some defensive woes. We talked a little bit about it last week, but I'm curious, like, is this going to be the state of the team this year? Because we had record-breaking goals in last year, allowed very many goals. Defense is an area we need to shore up big time. For once, I don't believe it's Bobby Sanchez's fault. So I think it's our back line. And I'm curious what you guys think sort of needs to happen to fix that. And is this going to be the state of the season? Is it going to be score 3, give up 4, score 2, give up 3, score 5, give up 2? Like, is that going to be the state of the season coming up forward for us?
Hard to tell. Like, yeah, we have pieces coming back, right? We have new pieces coming in, right? We have Tosin. Badiashile was out for what, like half the season. Fofana was out the entire season. Reese was out for a good chunk of the season. Kukurea and Chills, they kind of split time. Obviously Kukurea was playing most of it while Chills was out. You have a lot of moving parts, right? It's very similar to the midfield. You could honestly make the argument that's the state of our entire team is who's going to do what, who's going to play, who's not. We just need to find something that works for us. I don't know if we found that combination yet. We talked about kind of what would be our starting 11, and I think the only things that we've kind of shored up are the left back and the right back. I think center back is still very much up for grabs, and we don't know what that's going to look like. And unfortunately, that's the heart of your defense. So if we don't have that solidified, then I think we can expect a lot of that throughout the season. But we just need to identify what that combination is, and we need to, make sure that everybody's on the same page. I think once we do that, we'll be fine. But the question is not when it happens, but how long is it going to take? Right? Like we know it'll happen, but are we going to, drown a whole season just to find the pairing that works? I hope that's not the case. I hope it gets figured out quickly, but something's gotta be solidified soon. And I don't think City is going to be City first game. I don't think that's going to be the proper. I wouldn't say the proper test for us, because I don't think whatever pairing we put out there, I don't think it's going to be good either way. I think City is just too good. So I don't think it's going to be very telling of, did this work? Did it not work? I don't think it's a good measurement to go by. I think we'll know more probably after the first month and a half of the season.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to lock down who is in there. We're entering our final 2 preseason matches. We should see the center back pairing out there for these last 2 matches. I think Disasi is the only one who has it locked up if he's healthy. I don't know if he's back to full fitness or not, but I think he has to be on your team sheet against City. As for the other one, like I said, it could be anyone. They've all had their highs, they've all had their lows. Badiashile has been the least bad to me. Colwell has been okay. Tosin has had really high highs and really low lows. There's no middle ground with Tosin. And Fofana, we haven't seen enough. I don't know if he's ready to come back and play a full 90. He's been coming on as a sub. I don't know, but I agree. You need to get that center back pairing locked down right now. And if it's going to be Disasi as your right center back, I would love to see Colwell or Fofana next to him, because then you have the athletic, can move up and down the pitch, can move left and right, whereas Disasi is a little bit more power, right? Um, so I do like that we have not mentioned Ben Chilwell at left back. I like Cucurella at left back. Malo Gusto and Reece James, not worried about the right at all. I don't care which one of them plays, but I'm not worried about the right. But I think what's going to help prevent goals this year is that you're going to have two, maybe a 6 and like a 6.5 in front of them in Caicedo, and like I said, maybe Lavia up front. So you're going to have one or two people protecting that center back line. So I think it's gonna be rough to start as these guys learn the system. But if we get a set lineup out there and build consistency in that system, I think we're gonna see the number of goals conceded go down over the course of the year.
I think it has to, because I don't see us scoring drastically more than last year. I think we create about the same, and our finishing is as advertised. So finishing hasn't taken a huge step forward. So I think we need to prevent less goals from going in to have more success. I think all of our center backs are not super awesome. Like, I'm not super excited about any of them. Sassi, like you said, Collins, is the most exciting, but he's not perfect. Thiago Silva provided a lot for our team, and he's gone, and that sucks. And he was leader, he was vocal, he was pretty solid. I know he didn't play every match, especially last year, but we did lose a big part of our defense from last year, so that sucks. I don't know what's going on with Wes. Matches I've seen him play, he hasn't looked great. He's looked tired and uninspired and not super go get it, and not super athletic, and not almost like he wasn't trying a lot out there. So that was really disheartening. Tosin had a complete fumble on the ball where he didn't anticipate someone coming, and he just kind of nonchalantly tried to get it and got picked off right away, like taking off the ball. That's not super encouraging. And I've seen just our back third be a lot more chaotic and less calm. Calm. I like when things feel controlled, calmness amongst the team and our passing there. So I just haven't seen it yet. I think Lavia can provide some of that. I think Caicedo in prime form can provide some of that. And then a name we haven't really mentioned yet, but Big Les can provide some of that too, being a big body to help clog up mid, be a little bit more defensive, can help with that as well. What I'm really curious about is if we do play an inverted wingback system that leads to like a Malo Gusto or Marc Cucurella getting forward more, getting higher up the pitch, how we recover from that. If we do that on the left, does our right kind of have to sink back to help? Because if Noni Madueke or Cole Palmer have to kind of sink to help in defense while Stowe is pushing down the left, I just don't really see that being a great option for us. And I think we're very susceptible to the counterattack. That's what a lot of our preseason has been about, where passing isn't as accurate as it needs to be. Therefore, we turn over kind of carelessly or loosely in the middle of the pitch, and then we're susceptible because of the system that we're playing. Me very excited. I wish we played a more lockdown system. I miss the days where we won 2-0 or 1-0, or it was a 2-1 game. I miss those games more just because it felt like our defense couldn't concede. And I liked that about us. I liked that part of our DNA. We've strayed pretty far from that. So I'm not terribly concerned, but I have a mild concern about what our defense brings to the table as we line up today. Matt, I agree with you in the sense of I think it's going to take some time to figure out a pairing, and that's going to go against us. I don't want to spend 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 games figuring out who the best pairing is, but I think it's going to be an interesting one.
So Parker, do you go out and get a veteran center back? I know this new ownership is very anti-veterans, right? But there's some decent free agent veteran names out there like Hummels and Sergio Ramos, Joel Matip, if you're looking for Premier League experience. There's some names out there. Do you go and get one of those guys?
I would love a 27-year-old to 30-year-old center back. One player, role player, leadership player, positional player. Like I would love that. And I would sell two guys to get one. Like I would let two guys go. We talked about that last week though, where it's like we have 6 goalies on the roster. If you sell Bobby Sanchez and you sell the other big one, sorry, blanking on the name. Yeah, if we sell George, like go out and get someone then. Go get an Ederson because you funded 3/4 of it with sales of other goalies. It's like, why not? I'm sick of having 3-4 people at one position. You can't play them all at the same time. They're all mid. Go get someone elite.
Yeah, I would absolutely go touch the free agent market. And Matt, I know you hate Sergio Ramos, but man, I don't know. At 38 and with the experience he has, you bring him in and at least maybe let him teach or mentor or come in late in the game to kind of calm things down. But for as calm as Sergio Ramos makes things, right? Maybe you need. We talked about last year. Maybe this team needs an enforcer. Sergio Ramos is your guy. But I do like Matt Hummels. I know he doesn't move as well as he used to, but he's a smart guy. I would absolutely take him as well. I think there's interesting names, and I would explore it. I wouldn't necessarily pull the trigger on some of them, but I would explore and see if you can get one in for a year or two.
What do you think about that, Matt?
I'm shocked to hear Collins say that. Because if I recall correctly, and my memory might be off a little bit, you were pushing Thiago Silva out the door, and I think those were the only valid reasons or the only positives you can find from him is that maybe he can teach the younger kids, but you were perfectly fine pushing him out the door. So I'm a little perplexed as to why you would bring a 38-year-old, why you'd be willing to bring in a 38-year-old to basically do the exact same thing. Huh. I'm perplexed.
Yeah, just haven't watched PSG last year. Sergio Ramos moves a little bit better than Thiago Silva did. But we did not pair an athletic center back with him. It was typically Disasi. And then you had two guys who did not move very well.
Okay. No, I don't mind the idea of bringing in a more experienced center back. I don't hate that at all. 38 seems a little steep. But Sergio Ramos, yes, if I would say 5 years ago, yeah, that would have been a really good move. He's still playing for, or he was still playing for Villarreal, something like that. He was still playing top tier in La Liga, or maybe Sevilla. But like it wouldn't be a bad option 5 years ago. I'm just kind of looking through some center backs. One that kind of interests me would be and I'm surprised he's listed as center back, Ricardo Rodriguez. That one intrigues me because I think for most of his career he's played left back, if I remember correctly, but they have him listed as a center back. So that might be a fun one. He's 31, so you could probably still get 4 or 5 years out of him. I wouldn't hate that. I think that's a good solid move. He's definitely a capped Swiss international. He's been all around the world playing at top clubs, so I wouldn't mind a player like that being able to kind of step in and come help the club.
I think it's a solid idea. I know we have a lot of depth at the position. I just don't love a lot of the depth. The other name we haven't really talked about is Trev, who didn't get to come on the preseason tour. So I don't think he's going to be part of the long term. He might get the Milan Sar treatment, to your point, Matt. I just think we have a lot of bridesmaids and we don't have a lot of brides. We don't have a lot of guys that are lockdown position players. And I think a lot of people thought Wes could be that. Still might, but what I've seen so far has not told me that he's stepped up to that challenge, and we still have an empty slot then as well. So it'll be something we have to figure out. I would love to figure that out sooner than later. But moving on to the last topic, Gallagher. I wanted to talk about Gallagher and put a pin in it, whether he was gone or not. I figured it was going to be one of the last times we talk about him because I figured he was going to be gone soon enough anyway. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, and then you guys can opine on what you think. But I think there was a key mistake in how we treated the Gallagher situation, and a bigger mistake was what we did for the Gallagher situation, which was the signing of Kieran Drewsbury Hall. The reason why I say that is because we paid £30 million ADH. He's 25 years old. We put him on a pretty cheap salary, which I get. It was like $20,000 a week salary. So I think that's a win there. But if you look at what the transfer fee was, it's £30 million. Over 5 years, that's $96,000 a week. So if you translate all of that to salary, it is about $120K a week of salary that we're paying for KDH. Why in the hell are we going out to get a backup midfielder when we have a backup midfielder in Conor? The only part of this argument that doesn't make sense is if the conversations with Conor are he has to play, like he has to be a part of the starting 11 every week, and if he's not okay with being kind of a squad player. If that's the case, then the move to Atleti makes sense. I'm sorry, it was Atletico. Yeah, so the move makes sense. But if Conor did want to stay, which I do believe he wanted to stay, I just think he wanted a longer contract than the 2+1. Then I think paying him 150 on a 6-year deal, which is what you signed KDH to, who's 25 years old. So Conor's a year younger. Sign him to a 6-year deal. Pay him everything you used in the KDH role, and I think you have an upgrade. I think Conor Gallagher is better than Drewsbury Hall. I think he's a better player all around. I would much rather have him in our team today. And from what I've seen from KDH, like he's fine, he's decent, he's all right, but I'd rather have Conor. I think Conor brings more energy, more pressing. I think he's a better striker. He's not a great striker, but I think he's a better striker, better finisher at that. And he's a known commodity to us. He's our guy. He's been our guy, and he's tried to fight for Chelsea in the past. I think he would continue to fight for Chelsea in the future. So this is why it doesn't make sense to me. This is why, like, the numbers on paper when I did the math didn't make sense to me of why go out and get a guy, sign him to the long-term deal. He was a championship player last year. He wasn't even a Premier League player last year. I get that the manager knows him and trusts him and worked with him last year. I get that. synergies exist, but why go out and get a guy to be a backup? That's what KDH is going to be. He's going to be a backup midfielder for us. When we had a guy who could have fit that role, who knows these guys, captained our side for 2/3 of the season due to necessity of our actual captains being out, but captained our team, is a locker room guy, who is a fighter, who leads by example, who's an energy player. Like all of these intangibles I know about Conor, I don't know that KDH brings that to the table. Might, could be proven wrong. But that's where it just really frustrates me that this all happened this way. If I'm betting on a horse and I'm picking between those two, I'm picking Conor every single time. And see him get treated this way. And this doesn't even have to do with him being a Cobham guy, but just having him be in the team for the past 3-4 years, coming back from a loan from Palace, scoring against Palace, celebrating with the guys, like all of the things that we've seen Conor do, work and earn his place, now just kind of get thrown out the window. And I think that's a complete disservice to him.
Yeah, but that's great. He's a high energy guy. You know, he hustles and he fights for the badge, whatever. But very clearly, like, we're looking at a system that doesn't fit that, right? So the sporting directors were not happy with the way Pochettino's system and tactics all lined up. Lack of system, lack of tactics. Conor thrived in that. My belief is they see Conor as somebody who is not a very tactical player. This is going to be, from what I've seen in preseason, from what I've seen, of Leicester last year, is that this is going to be a very pass-heavy, look up, look around, pass. How many times did we say last year, Conor doesn't look before he passes. He has his mind made up before the ball even gets to him. And then it's a turnover. So it's great that he's high energy. That's wonderful. He'll press. That's great. But that doesn't fit what we're doing. And he's in the last year of his contract. And so if you're not convinced that he's going to help you in what you're trying to do, why would you give him a 5, 6, 7-year contract that's going to be hard to offload a year or two down the line when you're like, oh yeah, shit, he really doesn't fit our system. So I understand the 2+1 contract. I'm happy that they at least offered it to him, especially at the wages they're saying being paid among the highest paid midfielders in the team. So Caicedo and Enzo, 150 mil a week, or 150,000. That's a lot, especially in this system. So again, wonderful. Like it's great that you offered it to him, but he doesn't fit what you're doing. Dewsbury Hall, we know, fits this system. He thrived in it under Enzo. Yes, it's in the championship. That's fine. Some of the better talents over the last 5 years in the Premier League have come from the championship. And so a guy who had 19 assists last year, you would expect some of that to translate into the Premier League while also saving money, which is something that this ownership seems to be very keen on. Parker, you mentioned Gallagher can be that backup. That's fine. Do you want one of your backups being one of your highest paid midfielders? That doesn't make sense. That's going to lead to issues down the road too, especially if you got him on a 4, 5, 6-year contract.
But KDH, he's on a 20K a week salary, but you paid 30 million for him. So if you add that 96K a week to that, which is what that 5-year contract is in terms of weekly salary, he is making, we allocated 111 or 116,000 per week.
Okay, so we're saving 35 to 40,000 per week on that. It's a cost savings because you don't want to have a backup as one of your highest paid.
I'm just saying, like, he's slightly a discount.
And if Dewsbury Hall doesn't work out, he's easier to offload than Conor will be because he's on a cheaper contract. You paid less for him. It's much easier to correct that mistake than paying Conor a shit ton of money and then being like, oh yeah, no, we don't want you. Look at Raheem Sterling. We can't offload him to save our lives because we're paying him £325,000 a week. No one's going to pay that. So in the end, Conor, thank you for your service. By mutual consent, I would say, this did not go through. Conor did not want to sign the contract that was offered. And so last year, a contract, you can't let him go for free. Go get some money for him. I understand on all sides why this went down. And I don't believe Conor is worth what we're going to pay him for a guy who does not fit the system that these sporting directors want us to play.
He could. And I think he brings a press element that is part of the system because Maresca has talked about the high line that he wants to play, the press to play a high line system. So sure, on the ball is part of the system. The high press is part of the system. And Conor is the best at that we have. So that's part of it too. He might not be as active on the ball as KDH.
Where would you play Conor in the system? Like, where would he fit into your lineup? Because you already said that it's just Enzo and Caicedo pretty much in your midfield with who dropped back. Where does Conor play as one of the highest paid midfielders in this club?
He's a backup, as I said. So is KDH. They're both backups.
That's a dumb financial move for a club that's already struggling with FFP and it now has to deal with the much stricter European financial rules. it would have been a terrible move to extend Conor as one of your highest paid midfielders.
Possibly. I just think it was a dumb move to go get KDH, who's older. I just don't think he adds anything either. I think both moves are dumb then. I don't think he adds much to the team.
And before Matt chimes in, I want to fight you more on this. Why? Okay, so Conor apparently was offered a longer contract at more money about 6, 7, 8 months ago, and he turned that one down too. So, yes, a lot of people can rip on the club and rip on the sporting directors and rip on Clear Lake and Boley and Igbali and the manager and everything. Conor has a hand in this too. He was going into the last year of the contract, and like I said earlier, this smells of the Mason Mount situation, 100%. Now, I trust that Conor Gallagher is not as much of a snake, but if he also has a hand in this. If you were offered a big money contract with a little bit more years, 6, 7, 8 months ago, why didn't you sign it then?
If that's the case, then that's on him. It's 100% that's on him.
You can't expect to come down to the wire and get exactly what you want, especially when you have a change in manager, change in system, all of that. You can't bank on that. This is also on Conor's hands.
Yeah, and I don't know what that was. I don't know what that contract looked like. Maybe it was 4 years. He was looking for 6. I don't know what the terms of that contract were. I don't know what he was offered to be paid. I don't know what the length of that contract would be. If he did turn something down that was 6 years, 150K a week, that's on him. 100%. Totally agree. Like, of course, he's got something to play in this. Of course, the negotiations happen over time and whatnot, that he's not infallible and it's all against the club. I'm not saying that at all. I think this should have been locked down earlier. I just don't, I think that the club made their mind up when they went out and got Bruce Verhall. After that, it was sealed. There's no place for him anymore. We've chosen our guy and we're going to go get what we can for him.
All right. After hearing both sides of the argument, so I'm going to go in probably a different direction. I'm going to say that Conor was victim of circumstance. So one of the things that I've seen is this kind of, I wouldn't call it an epiphany, but this idea around clubs paying way over value for players from the same league. Specifically, a lot of academy players paying well over market value. I think a lot of, and the only thing I can think of is that these teams are making deals to keep themselves in alignment with FFP. So, yes, buy one of my players whose market value is 5 million, buy him for 30, and then we'll give you like a couple other players at like a discounted rate. So then we kind of balance books on both our sides. I've seen a few of these deals go down. It's interesting that, so knowing that, and then you look at, yes, we just hired Leicester's manager. We paid 30 mil for KDH to be a squad player at that. I don't see him being important. I see him as a squad player. You bring in somebody to help kind of work with the system of the new manager. He's not going to be a key piece of this whole thing. Not by any stretch of the imagination, given the amount of talent that is in front of him. He's there just to kind of help guide the process. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we have something going with Leicester, like trying to do them a favor by us taking Maresca from them and be like, okay, hey, here's also 30 mil to kind of help smooth things over. We'll take KDH and go from there. Because I have a hard time believing that his market value was at 30 mil. I have a hard time believing that. So knowing that some of this stuff, at least as a mindset, like it's not out of the realm of possibility, right? And I think with everything that had happened with Collins, what you talked about with Conor's contracts and things like that, I think he was a victim of circumstance. He was probably one of our only players that had a year left remaining on his contract. We were looking to try and help out Leicester with something in the price range of 30 mil. We saw a midfielder, which that's a key part of what Maresca does, is with the midfield. I think Conor was just kind of caught in the crosshairs of all of this. I think if you take the name Conor Gallagher out of it, and let's say it was somebody like a Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right? Let's just pick somebody else. Let's say it was him instead. Conor was already, let's say Conor still had 4 more years on his deal, whatever. And RLC was the only person that had 1 year left on his contract. He would have, to me, I think he would have been in the exact same scenario. It's just this, it's just the circumstance. I think had it been anybody other than Conor, same thing would have happened. It's just, I think, a little bit tougher of a pill to swallow because it was Conor. Right. We've, at least from mine and Parker's standpoint, right? For us, it was a little bit tougher of a pill to swallow. But given just kind of some of the things I've laid out, and granted, I don't have a lot to back this up. I'm just kind of going out on a limb with some of it, but I think it would have happened to anybody. It's just the fact that Conor's name is tied to it. And with what we know about what happened with this contract, I think it paints it maybe worse than what it was, which to me, it might have just been circumstance.
So, and I just thought of this too, and we talk about RLC, right? Well, first of all, I did look it up. Dewsbury Hall, according to Transfer Market, his value was 30 million as of October of last year.
Okay.
So, I was a little shocked by that as well.
Yeah, that to me seems very high.
But second of all, you have to remember that we have several midfielders who fit Conor's profile and play Conor's position, who are young and coming up. You got 1 year left on Conor's deal. You have to free up space for Andre Santos coming up. You got to free up space for possibly Cesare Cassette. You got to free up space for Leo Castledine. Right? You have a lot of players who are coming up here who maybe are not at Conor's level this year, but next year, the year after, will be. And so, if you're banking on their development there, you need to remove roadblocks from them, especially if you believe that they're going to be world-class players like they believe Andre Santos will be. You have to free that up. And so, like you said, I think Conor's victim of circumstance. 1 year left on his deal. Didn't want to renew on a shorter contract to ensure that there was space for these players down the line. It's in everybody's best interest to part ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say I wouldn't use the term roadblock. I think it's more so, and so you had brought up the contract, what was it, like 6-8 months ago? At that time, he thought he was going to be under Pochettino, right? So we got that. And then however the story shook out, I saw kind of multiple things. I don't know the timeline of it, but I saw that Maresca had said that he's not part of the plans. And I don't know if the contract was offered just before that, just after that. I kind of read them within a day of each other, so I don't know kind of which one fit where. But so to me, the order kind of matters as far as like, if the manager said you're not a part of this, you're not a part of the plan, then he got offered the contract. Well, yeah, I would turn it down too. Like, why? I was just told I'm not going to play, so why would I want to stay with the team, right? I think that makes sense. So I think the timing is a little bit important when we talk about that scenario. But in any event, I don't think so. When I hear the term road blocking, like he was doing it to make sure that nobody else would get past him, I don't think that was the case. I don't think that's Conor by any stretch. But I do understand the point, right? We have invested a lot, and these young players are on long contracts. So we don't have to worry about contract negotiations. Again, had Conor had 3 years left on his deal, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I think it was the fact that he had the 1 year left and things just did not work for whatever reason from whatever party. Things did not work and a decision was made. Again, I said it earlier, I'm glad he's going to Atletico. I really think he's going to do well in that system.
So
Yeah, he's a
Parker,
player I'm going to cheer for.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
He's a player I'm going to cheer for the rest of his career. Like, he's Chelsea through and through, and I will not boo him. Like, Kai Havertz and Mason Mount went last year, and like, great, see you later. You know, it's just kind of like whatever to me. Connor, I feel much differently about. I really wish it could have worked out, and I wish that it was part of the long-term sort of plan for it. But on the same vein or the same viewpoint, like, we might not have seen Connor play much if Lavia was healthy all year. We might not have seen the same Chelsea lineup if we had Nkunku and Lavia healthy. We had to play him a necessity because of who was injured and the duration of those injuries. So, you know, maybe my comments are just sort of in a fairy tale land of what I've seen from him. Just like the guy. I think he cares a lot. I think he's good. I think he's better than people give him credit for. Collins, I know that you mention a lot of the time when you see him keep his head down and pass quickly and make his mind up already. I've seen him make good passes to running guys as well, making those Lavia-esque passes, those Enzo-esque passes as well. I've seen him pull strings in the midfield too. So I've seen the good. Maybe I choose to focus on the good more than the bad. You know, I talked about his finishing being better than Dewsbury Hall. He's not the best finisher in the world. I'll admit that too. But he wasn't he missed some very, very, very key great opportunities last year. You know, I'm not blind as a fan. I try not to be illogical as a fan. He's just a guy I liked. He's just a guy that I respected. Played how I had to play in sport, which was with a lot of heart, a lot of effort, got the most skill. So I just think he could have. I think he could have been a great asset in the squad, in that system, even in Maresca's system. I think he could have been a great asset for it. And my whole point is, I think he's a better asset in the system than Dewsbury Hall. That's what I believe today.
So Parker, do we have time for one more question? Can I throw a question at you guys?
Oh,
So this year we've got Kepa and Lucas Bergstrom. They're and Gallagher were the players who are on their last year of their contract. Next year we've got Rom, who is probably out the door, right? Marcus Bettinelli, who gives a shit, except for Matt. Alfie Gilchrist is the other one. Are we going to run into a similar situation with Alfie Gilchrist?
Is the end of next year or end of this year?
Next year is his last year.
End of next season.
Yeah, so he's got 2 full seasons left on his contract.
Yep. I think it very possibly. It depends on what shakes out defense, really. Like, if there's still a lot of fight going on for our defense, like, maybe he is away. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he did enough to earn a shot at that center back pairing. Like, if nobody else is standing out, why not give him a look, right? You want your best 2, and if we're still trying to figure out who our best 2 are out of 5-ish, throw him in there too. See what he can do. I thought he did great in the limited appearances that he had, which I think was a lot more than a lot of us expected. But I think he held himself together very well, both at center back and at right back, right? He might not be as we found out, he might not be your starting center back, but he can definitely be your finishing center back, right? Like, he can be that guy that you throw on the John Obi Mikel effect, right? He can be the guy if you want to close something down, no nonsense, just get the ball out. He can be that guy. I think that there should be a conversation about can he play in the system. I think he deserves a look. Do we run into a similar situation? I wouldn't call it a situation. I think his situation differs from Conor's because Conor was a lot more high profile of a Chelsea player than Alfie. And I think Alfie is a pretty smart kid. I think he's going to understand, yes, this is my role. Let's talk. What do we think? I think he's just going to be somebody who will, depending on the opportunity that he gets or doesn't get, I think that'll make his decision. I don't think it's going to come down to, length of contract or possibly money. I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think it's just going to be, is there opportunity for him? And if not, then he needs a change of scenery. And I think he'll make that on his own. I don't think the club is going to help make that for him.
I think now is the time to offer him the Conor contract, the 2+1, right? So he's 20 years old, adding another 2 years onto his contract for him at 24, which is, either you made it or you didn't at that point. Because this year he's going out on loan. I think that's beyond a doubt. He's going to be going out on loan, probably to the championship. If he does really well on loan, you don't want him coming back with 1 year left on his contract. But if he fails, then it's like, oh, okay, well, now we have the year after where we can, see if we can rebuild some stock in him, right? Maybe he turns it around. But if you don't offer him anything, you can't do that next year after a bad loan. It's like, oh, okay, well, you are shit out of luck at this point. So I think that the talks have to be had now. We see a lot that Chelsea will extend a contract and then immediately loan someone out. I would love to see that for Alfie. Get him, again, 2 years, maybe a 2+1, loan him out, see how he does, and then you can reassess from there. There will be suitors.
I wonder if he's going to do another 2+1 because that's what he's on right now. He's on a 2+1. I think that'd be tough for him to do it another 2+1. Because you think about it, he's 20 right now. If the third year option kicks in, then he'll be 23, 24. So if the contract fully runs out and they pick up the option, right? So 2 years +1. If that is the case, then he's 23, 24 years old. And I think at that point, like, we'll know whether or not he's going to stay or he's not going to stay. I think a lot of it's going to hinge on whether or not they pick up that last year option for what would be his now current contract. I think a lot of it's going to hinge on that.
And I think it's mutually beneficial doing another 2+1 because either, he succeeds this year on loan and does really well, and then you've got him for another couple of years. You can send him out to a Premier League club the year after and then fully integrate him into the squad in 3 years time. Or on another 2+1, you can continue to loan him out, see if he'll turn around at all. And then you have him until he's 24, which is still a prime year to be selling someone. Even if you're selling him to the championship, selling him to League One, selling him overseas. And that is still young enough in his career where he can still make some money somewhere else. So I would hope that talks are already ongoing between the two parties.
Well, the other thing is that he's, from what I'm ballparking, his weekly wage is just over £5,000 a week. That's pretty dirt cheap in the grand scheme of things. So I think, and I think he's one of those players that, regardless of how he turns out, if you still think that there's a chance that, after his 2 years have gone out and then you look at the third option year, even if you look and say, okay, maybe we'll give you a 2+1, right? And we'll get you to say 20,000 a week, right? Again, it's still very inexpensive. You're basically quadrupling his weekly wage. It's a decent enough, or it's hardly a gamble at that point. You're just kind of testing to see what would happen. I think that's something that Alfie would probably take. But I also don't see that as being something where it's going to make or break the club. I think he's one of those guys where, yeah, you'd be comfortable. Sure, we'll give you a 2+1, and we'll bump you up to 20,000 pounds a week, and we'll see where it goes. It's still an easy enough contract to move. If other teams are interested, you could still, the transfer is still open. It's not a big hit anywhere. I wouldn't see any issue with that.
There. Dons, any final thoughts on that?
No, I'm glad Matt and I agree on the first pod he's on this year. Preseason.
Alfie's
So
one
it doesn't
too.
matter. It don't matter.
I didn't see nothing. Alfie's one though. I'd love to see him, but I think today he's not worth a lot. But if he can go out and make quadruple tomorrow somewhere else, everybody's their own person. Everyone's their own business and industry. And so I'm never against people going out and getting what they think is worth, that they think they're worth. So if you can go do that and you can go prove it somewhere else, Godspeed, my friend. I don't have room for you. Wish him the best. So, but that takes us a decent amount over the hour mark of preseason pod, which is always fun. Thank you, boys, for joining in the conversation today. Thank you, listeners, if you made it far, for listening to our bullshit. You can follow us on socials, share the pod with your friends, and looking forward to match on Tuesday, match on Saturday to complete our preseason. We'll probably do some season predictions then before the season kicks off. Get your hot takes ready, boys. As they're going down. They're getting recorded. They're getting written down, and then we'll play them throughout as part of our intro when they seemingly turn out to be shit takes. So no pressure, but with that, I'll say cheers to you, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers.